is on, I think.
Yes,
Again.
it is.
Okay, I triple check. I don't want to lose any episodes.
First shot is just Josh's titties.
Welcome to my cleavage.
These literary mammary glands.
You started.
My invitation is rescinded.
I'll put your cheesesteak in the freezer.
Oh, man.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Literary Gladiators, the show where we discuss and debate literature in all of its forms. If it's written work, it's game. Let's meet the panel.
Hi, I'm Krystal.
I am Dan.
Hi, I'm Cyndi.
And I'm Josh. And if you follow my Instagram or some of my other outlets on social media, since January 2024, I've been frequenting silent book clubs. I really enjoyed attending them, meeting different people, and hopefully finding people that might be interested in taking part on Literary Gladiators. And today, we are honored to have on board our very first person that I've met through the silent book clubs, and she is the organizer of the Book Traverse chapters that meet in Moorestown and Hamilton in the state of New Jersey. So, Krystal, it is great to have you on board.
Great to be here, Josh.
Anything that, any hidden talents that you may have, or anything you would want people to know about you?
Nothing that I want my FBI agent to know, and honestly, it's probably better if I don't tell you my hidden talents.
Okay. And I think that you, the viewers, are going to have an interest. I think you're going to have a fun time seeing Krystal on board talk about whatever it is we're reading. And today, that whatever it is we're reading is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. This is a collection of The Picture of Dorian Gray, his novel, several plays that he wrote, and short stories that he wrote. We went over The Picture of Dorian Gray back in Season 4, so it is very interesting to be able to revisit it now. And Oscar Wilde is an incredibly fascinating individual. He wrote probably, at the moment, my favorite play of all time, in The Importance of Being Earnest. And I have the discussion starter for this one, and it is as follows. As many readers know, The Picture of Dorian Gray is about our title character never aging while his portrait does just that, after wishing in a clearly shallow and vain society to fit in to their train of thought that beauty is more important, more so than unseen qualities like intelligence and love. Which uses of allegory do you feel stick out the most in driving Oscar Wilde's points home in delivering his underlying messages?
Sorry, can you repeat that again?
The discussion starter, that is.
Yeah, the last part that you asked, because I'm trying to think of that.
Which uses of allegory do you feel stick out the most in driving Oscar Wilde's points home in delivering his underlying messages?
I'm definitely... Well, like, the picture of Dorian Gray, portrait of Dorian Gray goes by different names. I think the best allegory is probably like the main one with like the painting, because he, like, yeah, he made like a vain attempt to like make a wish to things that he would always look like how he did in the painting, right? But eventually it changes over time with all of his horrible actions. I think the best allegory is that what we see in the portrait is who he is on the inside compared to who he is on the outside. I think the thing is that it shows the things that he's a vain, dumb, and evil person.
And I think it's much more evident when you read the piece, because a lot of people come in with the perception that he stays young, but the picture just gets generally old, as in it gets gray, it gets wrinkled, and in a way it does. However, I think that the greater descriptions are the way that he, the more emotional aspects, because the picture is more, it's more angrier and more, just more worn out, stressed out.
Yeah.
And it's not just the aging aspect of it, it's he doesn't look as pleasant or happy.
Yeah.
And in reality, he isn't. And it's this Faustian idea of him basically selling himself to the devil, and how he goes from he goes from the he makes this wish, per se, that he and the portrait would switch places, because in the real world, the portrait is the one that wouldn't age.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I hadn't thought about it as allegory, although the symbolism and the motif is definitely a very strong one there.
Yeah, I think that probably would have been a better term to use rather than allegorical. But in a way, I mean, it is the fact that it is using this example to drive home the idea that, because Oscar Wilde often wrote about Victorian England and how trivial and how shallow and vain they were, how they were how it was so ridiculous the way that these people acted. One of the, I was writing on, it was the quote on page 20 of my edition. And the fact that these people are being viewed as, they're speaking as if they're voices of reason. He said, as in, what was it that, Lord Henry was the one that said, and Dorian, you have a wonderfully beautiful face, Mr. Gray. Don't frown. You have, and beauty is a form of genius, is higher indeed than genius, as it needs no explanation. It is of the great facts of the world, like sunlight or springtime, or the reflection in dark waters of that silver shell we call the moon. It cannot be questioned. It has its divine right of sovereignty. It makes princes of those who have it. You smile? Ah, when you have lost it, you won't smile. People say sometimes that beauty is only superficial. That may be so, but at least it is not so superficial as thought is. To me, beauty is the wonder of wonders. It is only shallow people who do not judge by appearances. The true mystery of the world is the visible, not the invisible. Yes, Mr. Gray, the gods have been good to you, but what the gods give, they quickly take away. You have only a few years in which to live really, perfectly, and fully. When your youth goes, your beauty will go with it, and then you will suddenly discover that there are no triumphs left for you, or have to content yourself with those mean triumphs that the memory of your past will make more bitter than defeats. I mean, it basically said, it's the way that he's speaking, it's completely the opposite. The fact that if you don't see beauty as more important than those inner things that you cannot see, then prioritizing beauty for the unseen qualities is actually more shallow. But I think that Oscar Wilde is being very clever in the way that he is hitting home with that idea.
So it's essentially existentialism.
Yes.
I think we live in like such a perfect time frame of just like society to really take in the absolute societal horror of this book, because with the introduction of social media and you've got influencers and things like that, and you have just basically, it's like you have two lives. We all have a portrait, which is our social media presence, and then we've got our actual lives and what we actually do and say. And everything looks beautiful on social media, and you see it, and just all the time. And with these influencers, you have just these vapid, personality-less, shallow creatures who just look so perfect and beautiful and make you want to be them. But then there is nothing behind it. There is they exist for likes and shares and that attention. And I think that I read the book first when I was a teenager, and I didn't quite get how anyone could be that superficial. Because yes, I mean, I'm a millennial. I grew up with the shallowness of like 90s models and things like that. But I never felt that I truly understood what it meant to live in a society so horrifically shallow. And now, just living in the time of social media, I absolutely, like, this time around when I reread it, I got it, like, immediately. I was able to really just, it transfers so perfectly into life today. Nobody actually cares what's going on in your life and what you're doing and what you're saying. And if you think about it, when those things actually come to life, that is when influencers get themselves in trouble, because they are this perfect thing, this perfect portrait of a person and what we aspire to be. But then as soon as they open their mouths, you're like, Jesus Christ. So I think that right now is just like the perfect time to read this book and to really just kind of see how absolutely stupid as society we are.
And by opening our mouth, what kind of things would they be saying? Because a lot of influencers are the point is for them to influence, and the things that they say can be difference makers.
And I feel that person, those influencers, they are just roles. Because you see, and I apologize, I cannot come up with an example for you, but there are so many influencers who say the right thing, and they're like this, and if you think about it, it's like Dorian, where he was perfectly charming, like he was beautiful, everything out of his mouth, you're like, my God, the innocence, it's glorious. And just by him being in a room, he lit it up. And it's the same thing for influencers, but then you get these influencers who go out of character, as to say, they drop the act, and they are just completely opposite of what they've been projecting. I
mean, that's also a problem in just media in general.
Yes.
Reality TV, where...
God, it's the beginning of the end.
where when it comes to people are supposed to play a particular role, and when they don't play that role or they shift away from it, people are turned off by it. And I mean, that's the whole typecasting falls into that category. People are expecting, they come to expect a certain thing. And just the whole, I mean, that's the same thing with reading. People are expecting, when reading movies, where they go into different forms of media expecting what they want, and that pretty much diminishes the reason for art. Art is supposed to make you think, it's supposed to make you, and it's supposed to make you respond, and in instances it's supposed to make you uncomfortable, but that is, I mean, the picture of Dorian Gray, as far as this is concerned, it doesn't, it pretty much, Oscar Wilde pretty much had no hope for society, and I can't blame him, because...
He would have just completely drank himself to death if he lived right now. I feel like he would be even more exacerbated with society as a whole today. Because was Victorian England completely vapid and just like so fake and just so stupid? Absolutely. But I feel like today we have somehow we've raised that bar. We are really going for the gold. Yeah.
Yeah, it's in a convoluted way, it is also very artificial, this world that we're in. Just the way that just the fact that they're trying to hijack kindness and what it really means to be kind. And there are certain rules of being kind.
it's like when you see those videos of people, so they're recording themselves giving food and money to the homeless. Like, look, guys, I'm doing it. Ha, great. You know, but instead of just doing the thing, it's like they're not doing it for the right purpose. It is soulless. And I feel like that is what social media has become.
Are you doing it when the cameras are off? That's the
Right.
question at hand.
And the answer is most assuredly no.
I think we're digressing a little bit as far as the what this is making us think beyond the text. As far as this period of time is concerned, how could we apply it to this?
I don't know. What you brought up about social media, that's one thing I didn't really think of an aspect of.
I think it really does stick out when you come to think about it, and how it very much relies on the exterior, and how when you read about people, they write how interesting their lives are, and how, and I think that people sometimes will they'll feel a bit envious to some extent.
Well, people say on the internet you're basically faceless in most things. So people on the internet will act differently than how they do in real life. The thing is, like, when you if they're out in public, the thing is, no cameras, no ways to view them. The thing is, they will act a certain way compared to how they would act online.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, we don't really live in the moment the way that we really should.
I mean, I try to.
Yeah, I think we all.
I feel like as a society as a whole, though,
Yeah.
like everyone is so busy, and I say it all the time, like people are so busy, like trying to take the pictures of everything and like recording the moment and things like that, and I'm like, you know, life exists out of that. And my dude, like put it down, like live it.
Yeah.
You know, and it is definitely a struggle, and like I'm even guilty of it. Like I have, I have stepchildren, and I just want to photograph every single second of their day because every breath is important. But then I have to remember, I'm losing these moments with them. Yeah, I'll have these pictures down the line when I have cataracts and I can't see, you know, but in that moment you're just losing it. But people think that by, you know, having the pictures, having the videos, being able to post it, it becomes like immortal. But really, it's like, at that point, like, you know, 20 years from now, you're not going to remember that experience at all. Like, oh, we went on vacation? Oh, cool. Like
That's why I say, like,
living it.
filming and taking pictures of certain things, like, it needs to be done to, like, a certain degree is okay.
Yeah.
Like, me, when I went on a vacation to a whole nother country, the thing is, yeah, I took videos, I took pictures of the thing is, of everything
For
that was
sure.
there. But the thing is, I tend to be like, just like, oh, that looks cool. Alright, cool. Things now, let's go over there. Like, I actually tried living in the moment while also taking pictures of what I could.
Right, as opposed to, like, if you think, like, and I feel like I'm, like, trash-talking influencers, like, so hard right now. But, like,
Yeah, most of them
you know,
suck
they
anyway.
kind of just, like, put on the camera and, like, get up and, like, stretch. And, like, I'm like, oh, God, you couldn't have stretched, like, without it? Like, you needed this attention right now? Like, my brother in Christ. Brush your teeth before you push record. You know, it's very weird.
They'll record themselves brushing their teeth. Too.
Yeah, you know, unless they're teaching us how to brush teeth. But, you know, I digress.
And how to put the face cream on. That's the
Very
big
important. All 17 of them.
one. But let's talk about the relationship of Basil Hallward, the painter, with Dorian. How would you describe that?
He was in love with Dorian's innocence. And it's interesting to me because whereas he wanted that to exist forever, and I think that was his intent with, you know, that painting, is he's like, you know what, he's never going to be as innocent as he is in this moment, and I want to capture that beauty. And you can kind of see the deterioration of their relationship down the line because of that loss of innocence. And because I feel like, you know, like Basil, he's a little bit of an outlier in that society to where he doesn't subscribe to, you know, like Henry's bullshit. He's just like, my God, you're talking out of your ass, my dude. And he just kind of like stays in his lane. He just wants to do the thing, and he just kind of wants to do right. And I think that's where all the other characters that kind of form Dorian, you know, lack. And it was kind of like sad, really, to see the deterioration, because honestly, he could have been a saving grace for Dorian if he had just kind of kept with that, you know? Whereas I feel like, honestly, the worst thing that happened to Dorian was meeting Henry. Because that conversation in the garden that day was literally, that is what opened doors that should have never been open for Dorian. And I think that if that hadn't happened, Dorian could have actually ended up, he would have ended up with Sybil because he would have genuinely felt and kept that love. But I think that he became very obsessed with himself very quickly.
I still don't think Basil is. I think that Basil himself is also very shallow and vain. Still,
I think we all are to a certain extent, And I think, but if you want to like kind of put them on if you want to like gauge them next to each other, you put Basil and Henry next to each other. I'm going to tell you like Henry is the OJ. Like there's that.
I would say as far as there is always speculation that Basil had a romantic infatuation for Dorian.
Oh, without a doubt.
And I would say
total boy crush.
I would say that
Yeah.
I would say that I argued in favor of that. And after reading an article that brought up that they came out with a newer version back in 2011. It was they published. Oh, it was called the Picture of Dorian Gray, an annotated, uncensored edition. It does make mention to the fact that using colorful language in the more actually flowery language, that in fact Basil did have a romantic infatuation for Dorian that had to be edited out.
Could one argue that actual, perhaps, love for Dorian was probably the more authentic between, when it came down to it, by the end, we obviously see, like, Henry's like, bro, my wife just left me, like, get fucked, like, I'm not interested. Like, your bullshit is not my bullshit. Whereas I feel like with Basil, like, he just never quite gave up on Dorian. Even when he wanted to. He just couldn't.
You only should have.
Right, I could have saved him some pain. But I just kind of feel like Basil was the only one who authentically actually cared who Dorian was in that moment and could be. And every person he became, no matter what, like Basil, he hated the fact that he did it, but he just never quite let go of him. And I just felt like that was the most authentic person in his life. Henry just wanted him because he was a fun play toy. And it was fun to watch him do the things that Henry didn't have the balls to do. And then Sybil, he represented Prince Charming. He was everything that she dreamed of a man. She didn't know Dorian from anybody. And I think that it's just sad to see how he was the ultimate victim of Dorian when he was the one that cared the most.
Sybil is pretty much the quintessential person as far as who you are on the stage versus who you are in reality, because as the moment that she gets a touch of reality, it just seems like her stage presence falls apart. And then the moment that, and Dorian being the shallow person that he is, turns her down on that right because she is not as incredible on stage, and then decides she's going to kill herself.
Yeah, that was... I think like that was the point where I kind of just like, it was like, oh, Dorian's a bad guy.
I feel like that's when we lost faith in him. Like, every time we were like, oh, maybe he's not that bad. And then this poor sweet girl just, like, killed herself. I'm like, oh, maybe he's a shithead.
Yeah, like, I basically, like, what I like about the Picture of Dorian Gray's thing is that it's a guy who's vain, alright, and the thing is, does a bunch of these unspeakable things, but the thing is, he gets away with it because the thing is, he's charming, he's good looking. And it definitely shows the thing is that he knows he's a bad person, but he doesn't choose to stop. And I feel like
there's no ramifications, because
yeah.
the portrait gets it all. Yeah.
Because the thing is, he enjoys having that power. The thing is that I can do whatever I want, and no one will question it. Until, near the end, when it finally catches up with him, that all of his evil deeds finally come to a head. And the thing is, he realizes he can't outrun this anymore. But he doesn't feel remorse for it at the end either. The thing is, he knows he lost.
Yeah, he had a tantrum.
And he just is like, I have to, he doesn't even face the music, like, with his head held high. He kind of cowers out in the end.
And he destroys the portrait, which, in turn, he's the one, the roles revert back, where he's the older-looking man dead on the ground, whereas the picture is beautiful. But, he was only 38, but...
Yeah, well, the thing is...
Well, in Victorian time, that's like 86.
They were mostly dead by their 50s at that point.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, it was interesting with his, as far as his age was concerned. That's what kept him from being killed by Sybil's brother, who wanted vengeance.
Sneaky little shit. Yeah.
Was there anything you would wanted to add, Cyndi?
I was just thinking, it's like this book is like a commentary on being authentic. Really, it's very well written, very very sad. But I think it really, like you said, it really resonates with today's world because we are not. Many of us are not our authentic selves, and you can't outrun your life because eventually, if you could have a picture like the one that was painted for Dorian, eventually, if all of your social consequences are absorbed into a painting, eventually you've got to have a day of reckoning, whether you like it or not.
Yeah. I mean, that's basically, it did have an impact on Dorian himself because it constantly played with his head. It wasn't like he took it for, he never appreciated the change.
Also, didn't he cover it up at one point too? Like,
yeah, he did cover it up.
Yeah, because
he wouldn't let Basil see it.
And if you, right, and if you think about it, to me, it was very important that it was Basil couldn't see it because, like I said, Basil was he was in love and obsessed with the innocence and beauty of Dorian, but then if he knew who Dorian really was, it would break that spell.
Yeah.
And Dorian is the type of person who needs people to love him and want him, and the thought of losing, his number one fan would have destroyed him.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, like Dorian literally was just the poster child, like in Oscar Wilde's eyes, of a Victorian England dude. Like like they were just vapid, soulless creatures who went through life trying to hurt and destroy whatever they touched.
That's why I feel like the book is like a commentary, like, or you could say even a satire of the society at the time. Because the thing is, he's just like, hey, I'm calling you all out. The thing is, you're all bad people. Like the thing is, like, none of these characters I would believe were actually like maybe some Victorian people believe that, but I feel like it wasn't to this extent. I feel the things like that. The reason why I feel like it's somewhat of a satire is the things that he made them so comically evil. Yeah. The thing is in the book, because the thing is like their views are so outrageous that I'm just like, even at that time, I don't think somebody would say this out loud in earnest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think this is a common theme that Oscar Wilde visits. The importance of being earnest was fantastic as well, and it touches upon similar ideals as far as the need to have a pleasant name and a pleasant identity is far more important than who you really are and being an honest person entails. But it was his last play because that was around the time that he was arrested for sodomy.
I played Gwendolyn Fairfax in high school in that play, and it was by far my absolute favorite role to play because you want to. I'm just such a smart girl. Like going from just like a normal, like reasonably intelligent, not a jerk type person, and being able to drop that persona completely and become that vapid, simpering creature that she is, the delight that she is. Mm-hmm. Like, it was just so much fun. And to be I'm a pretty sarcastic person, and to basically just bathe in Oscar Wilde's, sarcasm and wit for, an hour and a half is just magical. Recommend it to everybody.
Alrighty then. I would say, yeah, I mean, one of the quotes that I put down was the role of or something that really stuck out to me was how Oscar Wilde discusses the role of the artist, and the whole. One of the major quotes was on page 8, where Harry said, Basil Hallward, looking him straight in the face, "Every portrait that is painted with feeling is a portrait of the artist, not of the sitter. The sitter is merely the accident, the occasion. It is not he who is revealed by the painter. It is rather the painter who, on the colored canvas, reveals himself. The reason I will not exhibit this picture is that I am afraid that I have shown in it the secret of my own soul.
So then do you think that that's Oscar Wilde basically saying, hey, I'm outwardly telling you that I'm writing about these, soulless Victorian England people, but in all actuality, I am this silly, soulless, vapid creature.
I think I don't know if your version had the preface, but he does kind of make mention to that as well as a major theme to this, where the very first thing is the artist is the creator of beautiful things. To reveal art and conceal the artist is art's aim. Where if any form of artist, be it an artist, a writer, a poet, a playwright, if they're sharing their work and they're writing for themselves, oftentimes there's a piece of them that's in there. Especially when it's written well, but then again, the rules as far as writing is concerned are very subjective. I know Cyndi's very much into writing manuals, and which are very valuable as far as putting together the craft is concerned. But there are so many rules that can and should be broken. It's all a matter of finding enough people that are interested in reading it. And then again, maybe not even, because there's an audience for any kind of written work or visual work. It's just a matter of what you're looking to get out of it. But, I mean, there were so many moments in this book that I read, like this one, that I read it and it was just, goodness, Oscar Wilde is brilliant. And I really want to read more of what he's written. I mean, I've only gotten to this and The Importance of Being Earnest.
I've never read anything else by him, so this is my first thing by him. It's actually, I enjoyed it way more than I thought I would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've read this again, and nothing has changed, really. I mean, it really made me think, and it was good to have the refresher.
I'm so glad I read it again because, like I said, I feel like I felt it and saw it in such a different light. As, like I said, I read it as a teenager. So obviously I see it through a teenager's eyes. And now I'm I think I'm a grown woman. And reading it and being able to kind of like compare it to today's society and things like I got so much more out of it. And I'm already an Oscar Wilde girl. And it just made me even more of a stan.
How many of his other works have you read?
Low-key, just Importance of Being Earnest. But I've just always been a fan of just him as a person. Mm-hmm. His story is just so interesting, and he is such a a fascinating person. Mm-hmm. And everything he wrote that I have read is just gold.
And I just find it very bold for somebody during that time to be able to come out and reveal that they are gay.
Just the balls this man had, just huge.
Even with the consequences that came with it.
Yeah.
By the time, the consequences.
Mm-hmm. It ruined him, and it's a shame.
Some may say it killed him.
Mm-hmm. But does anybody have any final thoughts?
No, but this is more of a question. Does he have any other works that are about bad people? Because I kind of enjoyed that. It was about a bad person.
Any works in general?
Yeah, like any works in general he has that are like kind of similar to the picture of Dorian Gray.
That I'm not sure. I need to look into them more.
Because I don't think that anybody inherently is evil in.
I know, but I like the character.
I think they're actually.
Yeah.
I definitely get what you're saying.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking in the only one I've read, The Importance of Being Earnest. No one's evil. They're just stupid.
Yeah, they're crazy. They're absurd. I think is the better way to put it. But he also wrote Lady Windermere's Fan, A Woman of No Importance, An Ideal Husband, Salome, The Duchess of Padua, Vera or the Nihilists, A Florentine Tragedy, and La Sante Courtisane. According to the introduction here, it says that there were some that had a stronger showing than others, such as the Lady Windermere's fan got a great response, and Woman of No Importance and An Ideal Husband.
I feel like those are the ones that I've like heard of.
And then the importance of being earnest, according to this introduction, is viewed as his masterstroke. And it does say that each of the characters employs characters hiding a secret or double life. So, alrighty then, how would we rate this book? 0 to 5 stars, half stars permitted. Krystal?
Wild Girl, I'm giving it 5 stars.
Alrighty.
Me, 4.5. I liked it, just I thought it was a little long.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I say we go with 4.5.
I'm giving it 5 as well, because I can keep reading this and I can find something different to enrich myself in as far as reading The Picture of Dorian Gray is concerned. And you can't, you can continue to relive the genius and the brilliance that comes through Oscar Wilde's absurdity. And this is probably his most noteworthy work. It's garnered more attention than his plays in this day and age, even though the importance of being earnest still garners attention. But Picture of Dorian Gray does have acclaim, and rightfully so, because it is demonstrating that it still remains timeless to this day. Alrighty then, if you are interested in picking up The Picture of Dorian Gray, here is my collection of The Picture of Dorian Gray and other works. This was a pretty good price. This includes the plays that I mentioned, and some short story collections. And I want to thank you for tuning into this discussion, and I hope you check some more discussions out on our channel. If you really like what you see, please subscribe. And if you absolutely like what you see, please support us on our Patreon. For the money that we make will allow us to provide you, the viewer, with even more great content, including the exclusive content that you'll find on our Patreon. Be sure to join us next time on another episode of Literary Gladiators. For now, keep reading.